Hey everybody, welcome to In the Red Zone. Sean Brown, Michael Johnson here with you. It's time for Week 2 college football picks. Already into Week 2. We've already had Week 0, Week 1. It's really the third week if you think about it.
Yeah.
Before we get started, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. Like the video, leave a comment, and then also go check out Odds Jam. Link is in the description. There's a link above, a link to a video I've done that explains Odds Jam. But basically, if you're serious about sports betting, every sport, every spread for every sports book around the country, it's all right there. You need that tool if you're serious about sports betting. Okay, Sean, we're not even going to discuss. We'll get into it as we pick games, but let's get right into it because that's what these people want. They want to hear our picks. Let's go. First one up. Illinois is at Kansas. Kansas is a 3-point favorite in the over-under 55.5. What do you think?
Yeah, both these teams won their first game. I'm going to err on the side of the home team. I'm going to go with Kansas. I don't think, let's see, Kansas has still got quarterback, I'm blanking on his first name, Bean, as the guy who played last week.
Mm-hmm.
He was 22 of 28 for 276 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Kansas on this one, the home team. I like them better than Illinois here.
I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to go with Illinois and stay with the Big Ten. Last week, I know Kansas got the win, but they did struggle a little bit early. I do think Illinois is an improved team, and I think they can go in there and they can actually pull off the upset. I know Kansas is the favorite. As far as the over-under 55.5, I think it's a lower scoring game. It's going to feel a little bit more like a Big Ten game, so I'm going to take the under in that one.
I'll take the under. Illinois won by 2 points to Toledo last week.
Yeah. Toledo's actually a really good team in the MAC, though, so I wouldn't overlook that too much. All right, you ready for the next one?
Yep.
All right, Vanderbilt is at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is a 10.5-point favorite. Over/under on this one, 57.5. Vanderbilt has looked strong, which they did last year. They are an improved football team. They're getting better each week. Wake Forest has actually been able to score points. They actually don't look too bad. You thought losing Sam Hartman, they would drop off significantly. They have dropped off, just not as much as we thought. As far as this one goes, I just like the underdog. 10.5 seems like a big number here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Vanderbilt and the points in this one. And over under 57.5, I'm going to go over. I think this becomes a little bit of a higher scoring game.
I've got Wake Forest here, and I'm also going to take the over. I didn't like really what I saw from Vanderbilt against Hawaii. Hawaii ended up, and granted, it was the first game. They're having to travel to Hawaii, so I'm taking Wake Forest in this.
Okay, Notre Dame 7.5-point favorite against NC State. Over under is 50.5. Notre Dame's one of those teams. They played Navy, and everybody just jumped on board. Sam Hartman, he's a tremendous quarterback. He just is, and he's going to get a lot of stats. He's going to throw for a lot of yards. He's going to throw for touchdowns. NC State. They lost Devin Leary, who transferred out, and they're kind of like a toss-up up in the air. You're not really sure what you get with NC State. I'm going to err on the side of what I know, which is Notre Dame, I think, is a really good football team. Are they a national title contender? Probably just on the outside looking in. I don't think they're there yet, but I think they're better than NC State. So I'm going to take Notre Dame with the 7.5, and then the over-under 50.5 again. I think this turns out to be a little bit lower scoring game than people expect, so I'm going to take the under.
So Notre Dame, they're averaging 500 yards per game. That's in 2 games. And they did play Navy first, and then they played Tennessee State, which I think Tennessee State is coached by Eddie George, I think?
Yeah, it's Eddie George.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yep.
That was pretty cool.
Yep.
But anyway, I'm going to take Notre Dame in this, and I'm going to take the over.
Okay. You think some more points scored in this one?
Yeah, they're scoring. I don't see their total points, but they scored 56 against Tennessee State and 42 against Navy.
Well, I mean, if the final score is 26-25, that's
yeah,
over. So,
yeah. I think both teams have enough to be able to go the over on that.
Okay. Next one, Utah 7-point favorite at Baylor. Over under on this 49. Baylor gets upset by Texas State. Texas State, I think, third in the FBS with the most transfers for this past year. Obviously, Colorado was number 1. 53 transfers that came in, and Texas State just goes in and shocks Baylor in Waco. Yeah. It was a surprise. I mean, I didn't see it coming, but obviously they're doing some things right in Bobcat country.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's an indication of how bad Baylor is or just how good Texas State is. What I do know is Utah looked tremendous against Florida with backups. Yeah. They had 5 starters that were out, including Cam Rising. They still took care of the Florida Gators, which we said they would.
Yeah.
And so in this one, I just think that, to me, this is one of my money games. This is a lock game for me. I'm taking Utah cover 7, and I'm going with the over 49.
I've got Utah as well. Not really sure what's going on at Baylor with Dave Aranda's team. Man, I want to take the over, but knowing how good, defensively Utah is, and then Dave Aranda's teams are normally more defensive-minded, I'm going to take the under in this.
Yeah, they gave 42 to Texas State. Just remember that, though.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Nebraska at Colorado. Colorado is a 3.5-point favorite. Over-under in this, 57.5. I mean, Colorado just went lights out. Congratulations to them. I didn't think they had a chance against TCU. TCU did find some offense. I mean, they still put up 42 points. But Travis Hunter is a real deal.
Yeah.
He's the real deal. I mean, playing both sides of the ball, had an interception, had 119 yards receiving. Shadir Sanders at quarterback threw for 510 yards, 4 touchdowns, the most yards in a single game in Colorado history in his first game. They look tremendous. But the thing I'm going to say about Colorado, and because I'm not ready to jump on the bandwagon yet, is that, Travis Hunter, that's great, but he played 129 snaps.
Yeah.
So I think statistically for a full season, your chances of finishing a season healthy without an injury is something like 60%. If you're playing both sides of the ball, equal number of snaps, that goes down to 30%.
Yeah.
I can't imagine this kid stays healthy the whole season if he's playing both sides of the ball. Right. That's just so many snaps to take.
Yeah, and I don't know that Deion Sanders really reels him in at all. I mean, right. He may say, go play. If you're good to play, go play.
Yeah.
I don't see him making that call to really kind of ease the brakes a little bit.
I do think so. The feeling I get, my gut tells me that Colorado is going to do a lot like Maryland's done the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. They might start out 5-0, and then they're just going to tank and go off the cliff. I mean, Maryland does it every year, or has. In Colorado, I feel like they're going to get hit with the injury bug, after about 5 games, and then it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah.
And talking about Nebraska, watching them against Minnesota, I was really impressed with their defense. I mean, Nebraska handled Minnesota the whole game. It just came down to the last 4 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
And that's because you have a young Jeff Sims at quarterback. You got guys who, I mean, even going back to the Scott Frost days, losing games by single digits so many times, and that's just you don't know how to win.
Yeah.
You get in a position to win and you panic and you just kind of let it go. And that's what Nebraska did. They let it go against Minnesota. They had that game until the last 4 minutes.
Yeah.
I think Nebraska is going to play really good defense against Colorado, but I do think that Colorado offense is just so explosive. I think they continue. It's only 3.5, so I'll take Colorado to cover, but I'm going to take the under 57.5 as far as the over-under goes.
Yeah, I'm going to take the under as well. I am taking Colorado. I think they come back home. They're going to have a crowd there that's pretty happy to see them come home and play for the first time in front of their home crowd. So, it's going to be a very hyped game, and I do think that Matt Rule will get Nebraska, back to some kind of relevance.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little while. Mm-hmm. His first year at Baylor, I think they won like 1 game.
Yeah, they did.
And so then the next year, obviously, he does a lot better. Mm-hmm. I believe they made it to the Big 12 championship that year.
Mm-hmm. I just think they're like Jeff Sims at quarterback. He just needs snaps.
Yeah. He's
going to be fine. He's going to be a good quarterback, but he just made a lot of mistakes, mental mistakes. Threw the 2 interceptions that were very costly, and it takes time. I think midway through the season, I think you'll see Nebraska hit their stride and probably win some games down the stretch that they probably shouldn't win, and people won't pick them to win.
Yeah, they may kind of turn it on a little bit later in the season, but I don't think this is it. No. Colorado they're going to ride that momentum, I believe, into this next game, and I think they'll win it pretty good. All
right, James Madison, 7-point favorite against Virginia. Or the over-under on this is 44. James Madison is actually a really, really good football team. they're FCS, right? They're usually playing for a national championship or contending for it every single year. Virginia down. Virginia played Tennessee last week. And Tennessee pretty much handled them.
Yeah.
I mean, which they were supposed to. I mean, Tennessee is, as far as talent goes and athletes, Tennessee is superior to Virginia. Ultimately, James Madison, the problem I have here is the 7. I don't like 7. If it was 6 or lower, I might have a tendency to take James Madison. I'm going to take Virginia here just to keep it within 6. James Madison may come out with the win, but I'm taking Virginia to keep it close. Over under 44, I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, they've already got that first game out of the way, and especially first game at home since that tragic shooting last year on Virginia's campus where they just shut things down. I think, did they have one game left?
Yeah, I think so. And by the way, in last week's game, their tailback was one of the shooting victims, and he was back and played last week, and that was pretty big deal to see him back in the game. So congratulations to all of them at Virginia for recovering from that.
In this one, I got to be honest, I don't know a ton about James Madison. I do know that they're pretty formidable, but you're going against Power 5 here. Even though it is, a pretty bad Virginia team, they're on I think 5-game losing streak. I don't know. This is at Virginia. I'll say, what the heck? I'll go with James Madison.
Okay.
I'll go the under on the 44.
Okay, under 44. Okay. Ole Miss is a 7-point favorite against Tulane.
This is an interesting game.
Over under on this one, 62.5. I got to tell you, I think this turns out to be a close game.
Yeah.
I think both teams can score a lot. I have the over in this one. Yeah. I think it goes way over. Like
62?
I think it goes over 62. It might get close to 70.
Yeah.
And it could be, I think this is like a field goal game, a 2-point game.
Yeah.
Might even be an overtime game. So because of that, I'm taking Tulane. But I could definitely see this being a 39-36 game, which goes over 70. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to take Tulane in the points just simply because they're the underdog. I would have, in this matchup, I'm taking the dog no matter what.
Yeah.
But I am definitely taking the over.
Yeah, I'm taking Tulane. They've shown, in recent memory that they can beat pretty formidable teams. They beat USC a year ago. And in their last few games, they beat SMU, Cincinnati, UCF, USC, and then they played Southern Alabama in that first game and beat them 37-17. But I'm going to take Tulane to cover here, and I'm going to take I'll go the over. That makes sense. It could be a very high-scoring game.
Yep. Okay, next one. Texas A&M, 4-point favorite against Miami. Over-under on this one is 49. So here's the thing. I watched Miami. I was impressed by their offense. They did play Miami of Ohio, but they just looked like a team. They haven't looked like a team for a long time.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed with how Miami played. On the flip side of that, I think Texas A&M with Bobby Petrino has found what they thought they had last year. I think they're going to be a much better, improved football team. I think this is a close game, and this is one of those where I got to take the underdog because it's so close. So I'm going to go with Miami, but I'm going to go over on the 49. I think both offenses are clicking right now. Both offenses can score some points. To be seen, I don't know about Texas A&M's defense. Rather, they can hold Miami.
Yeah.
Miami's defense looked good, but it was Miami of Ohio. So we're still in that point where we're trying to evaluate teams and we just don't know.
A&M has recruited so good along the defensive line. They've got a lot of young guys that were 4- and 5-star guys. And eventually that defensive line will become a very solid unit.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take Miami here. I'm going to take the home team. Normally it's 3 or less, and if you're not quite sure, take the underdog or take the home team. So I'm going to take Miami. I'm going to take the home underdog here, and I'm going to go the over on the 49.
Okay. Iowa is a 4-point favorite against Iowa State. Over-under on this one, 36.5. Iowa, I think with Cade McNamara, they found a little bit of an offense. It's the first time Iowa has opened an opening drive of the season with a passing touchdown since 1991.
Wow.
And thanks to one of our viewers on his comments for letting me know that. So I guess they showed it during the game. I wasn't watching it at that moment. But first passing touchdown to open a drive for Iowa since 1991. So congratulations, Iowa.
That's crazy.
And Cade McNamara, you got to remember, Cade McNamara is the guy who beat out Joe Milton for the starting job at Michigan a few years back.
Yeah.
He's not a bad quarterback.
Yeah.
And then you add a little bit of offense along with one of the best defenses in college football. And it's a potent, mixture there. And I think Iowa's right up there contending for the Big Ten West this year.
Yeah.
So as far as this one goes, Iowa State has had a lot of issues with the gambling stuff. Guys being suspended.
Players, I think, that are suspended.
6 players. Yeah, and right now I can't pick them. I can't. So I'm going to take Iowa to cover that 4. 36.5. I think it's a low scoring game.
I'm going under.
So I'm going under with that one.
I'm going Iowa and under.
Okay. Tulsa against Washington. Washington's a 34-point favorite. Over under 64.5. Tulsa took care of business last week. Looked pretty decent, considering who they were playing and everything. Washington lights out. Penix Jr., he's my preseason pick to win the Heisman, and he threw for 5 touchdowns. Just looked phenomenal. Doesn't look like anybody can really stop him in that Husker offense. The question really for them is the same with USC. It's defense.
Yeah.
Can they stop people? They will stop Tulsa. They will beat Tulsa. I am taking Tulsa in the points, though, because I think it stays within 20 points. But I am going to take the over because I think this turns out to be a pretty high-scoring game.
So I'm taking Washington. I just think that their league's better than Tulsa. It is at Washington, so quite a ways to have to travel. And then on the over/under, I'm gonna take the over in this. I think it is a high-scoring game, but I think from Washington's standpoint, and I don't know that Tulsa has the players to really keep up with Washington.
Yeah, they won't keep up. Yeah. Okay, App State is at North Carolina. North Carolina is an 18-point favorite, over under 60.5. North Carolina, the shock to me for the week, I knew they were going to put up points against South Carolina. I was surprised their defense was able to hold South Carolina to, 17 points?
Yeah.
So that was pretty impressive in my opinion. I mean, because the last 2 years, they've had one of the worst defenses in college football.
Yeah.
So that was it was a Power 5 matchup. It was a rivalry. North Carolina, South Carolina, and for North Carolina to come out the way they did and take care of business, if they can do that week in, week out, I think they absolutely have a legitimate chance at winning the ACC if they can play like that week in, week out.
Yeah.
As far as this one goes, this is kind of a rivalry. It's an in-state rivalry with Appalachian State. 18 points, 60.5, the over-under. I'm going to go with the over here, and I don't know why, but my gut is saying take App State in the points in this one, that it becomes like a 15-point game. I know you'll take North Carolina, but I'm going to take App State.
I'm taking North Carolina. Defense, Mac Brown has kind of pieced together a pretty decent defense.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the under on the points, on the over-under, and I'm going to go North Carolina.
Okay. This is your game. SMU at Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a 16.5-point favorite. Over under 70.5 on this one. So Oklahoma comes out last week and they just looked flawless. I mean, I know it was Central Arkansas. They had Butch Jones in tears. I mean, it was just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they looked so good. Blanking on the name. Quarterback Dylan Gabriel looked phenomenal, and then Jackson Arnold came in, went like 11 for 11. Right? I mean. Wow, I mean, I did not watch the whole game, but what I saw, and more importantly for me, the defense getting a shutout.
Yeah. That
is impressive because that's the question mark last year. Brent Venables, he's a defensive genius.
Yeah.
What was he going to be able to do? I've heard a lot of stuff in the offseason about how good Oklahoma was going to be. That's why I have them finishing in the top 2 and playing in the Big 12 championship game with Kansas State. I really think Oklahoma's for real this year. I really do. In this game, I'm going to take them to easily cover 16.5, and I am going to take the under in the points. I think things get settled back down to earth a little bit this week. I bet OU scores maybe 55.
Yeah.
But I don't think SMU is going to score a lot. They're in a transition now after losing Tanner Mordecai. They're not quite that potent offense they were in the last couple of years. And then if you haven't heard the news, I'm sure you have if you're football fans, SMU, part of that group that's going to the ACC next year. Yeah. So good for them. They'll probably get a new stadium out of it now.
But also part of their deal is they will not receive media.
9 years.
9? I thought it was 6.
It was 9 years. No revenue from ACC for 9 years.
But they do have. I mean, they're right smack dab in the middle of Dallas. Like they've got boosters.
Yes.
They're a
They have
private
some of the
school.
richest alumni.
Yeah.
And living right there in I think it's Highland Park. They're in the North Dallas area. I used to live in that area, like not too far from there. And there's money there.
Oh,
and
I remember coming to stay with you guys, going shopping, and like
it's crazy.
SMU's right there by like all the stuff.
Former President George W. Bush lives in the area.
Yeah,
and they have money, and now that they're in the ACC, I guarantee you they're going to be building a new stadium.
Yeah,
and I don't think they're going to be hurting not getting any ACC revenue for 9 years. It's
weird that a school like that is not coming into the Big 12.
Sure.
When you think of Texas school, you'd at least think. SEC with Texas and stuff, but man, it's just weird they're going to the East Coast.
And you know what? It's great for the ACC because of the Dallas market. Yeah. There's a lot of high school talent in the Dallas market.
I think they got a good school there.
Okay. But what do you got here?
So, I look at this and I think easy pick would be Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. 16 and a half points. SMU is not. They didn't drop off a ton from Tanner Mordecai. Preston Stone, I think, threw for, I don't think. He threw for 248 yards, 3 touchdowns. So had a pretty decent day, but that was against Louisiana Tech. And then, of course, you probably saw the 73-0 against Oklahoma. I think Brent Venables said there were 10 guys that started for OU that have never started before. So 10 players, and then I think they played 87 players total.
That doesn't surprise me when you're up that big.
So I don't know if they're going to do that again. SMU, I believe, is way better than
Central Arkansas.
Than Central Arkansas, or no,
Arkansas State.
Arkansas State.
Yeah, I misspoke earlier.
So I could see SMU being within, 21 points, 17 points. I could see that, but it still would be a good win. It would still, separate you quite a bit. I'm going to take SMU just because I don't want to overreact with Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That's great. That's perfect. Perfect from top to bottom almost in that game. Dylan Gabriel did have a couple of throws that were long bombs that were underthrown. I think he had like 3 underthrown balls that resulted in pass interference, but on the defensive side. But they're still trying to break in the running backs, and I'd be interested to see which running back this week, if they get Gavin Sawchuk back, if any one of them are able to go for over 100 yards. Not a single wide receiver went for over 100 yards. Andrell Anthony probably should have, had he not been interfered with on some of those. But and then also just 1 sack. But Arkansas State was getting the ball out of his hands. Their quarterback was throwing the ball really quick, so a lot of bubble screens. I'm going to take SMU to keep it closer than 16 and a half.
Okay.
I'm going against my team here.
I'm shocked that pick. I thought for sure you'd be.
And then on the over-under...
70 and a half.
I'm going to take the over in that.
Okay. All right. Next game, Cincinnati at Pitt. Pitt is an 8-point favorite. Over-under is 48. I'm telling you what, I said it in the Big 12 preseason video I did. Cincinnati is a heck of a lot better than people are giving them credit for. They went out last week, won 40, I think it was 42-7 is what they won. Cincinnati is a very good football team. They are one of the top 6 in the Big 12 in my opinion, and people are sleeping on them. I got Cincinnati to outright win the game, and I'm going to take over 48 in this one.
Who did Cincinnati play this first week?
I'm blanking.
Eastern Kentucky.
Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they won 66-13.
66. Okay. It was 42-7 when I quit watching. So.
And then Pitt beat Wofford 45-7.
Yeah.
I originally had Pitt in this, but looking at the numbers for Cincinnati, they went for 667 total yards, 438 through the air, and 229 on the ground.
That's impressive no matter who you play.
They gave up. Pitt gave up -1 rushing yards.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you're going to see Cincinnati running all over Pitt in this game. I'll take Cincinnati, not to outright win, and I'm switching my pick. I never do this, but I'm switching to Cincinnati to keep it a close game because Pitt may undervalue them, and just like everybody else. But then I am going to go the under.
Under 48?
Yeah.
Okay. This would be my second money game. So if I'm actually like this is I'm sure about this one. So when I say a money game, those are the ones I'm sure about because obviously at 20 picks, you're not going to go bet on 20 games. But the ones I say are a money game are the ones I would go put money on. Okay. Let's move ahead. Next one, the big talker, the one everybody is anxious for this week, Texas and Alabama. Alabama's a 7-point favorite. 55.5 is the over-under. Obviously, last year's game was close in Austin. This year, Alabama's breaking in a new quarterback. He looked good last week, but it was Middle Tennessee State, so you can't really read a lot into that. Texas had Rice. They struggled early, took care of business at the end of the day. And ultimately, here's the deal with this. I think these two teams are a little kind of evenly matched. So whatever the spread came out, I was taking the underdog here. So I'm taking Texas and the 7. And as far as an over-under is concerned, I'm going to go under. I think this becomes a defensive game.
Yeah, this game last year was decided by 1 point. Alabama ended up winning 20-19. That was before, Texas had a really good start to the year, and then they just kind of fell off, had a lot of second half kind of crumblings of the building. I'm going to take Texas in this as well. I think it may be the kind of thing where it's last person with the ball wins this game. I don't think this is the same Alabama that you've seen in years past. Jalen Milroe was the number 1 rusher from this last week, had 48 yards on 7 carries. Jace McClellan went 10 carries for 39 yards and 1 touchdown. So, they're going to have to find something in their rushing game. They may be fine. Maybe they were just kind of, trying to. But that was Middle Tennessee State. You should have at least somebody within your receiving core or your running back room that goes for over 100 yards on this. I mean, easily. Easily.
I agree with you.
And I'm trying not to ding him too much. It's the first game. But I think that, I don't know. I did have Texas or Alabama at one point before I actually started thinking about it. Texas now, last year what they were successful in was running the ball and then on defense stopping the run. This year a lot of those guys are gone. They don't have their star defensive linemen that they had last year. They don't have Roschon Johnson or Bijan Robinson back at running back. They're going to have to find those guys real quickly who can step up. They have wide receivers out the door. They have really good quarterback play. They're going to have to dink and dunk down the field because Ewers does not have a deep ball.
No.
He's not very accurate when trying to throw the deep ball. So, but with all that to say, I'm going to take Texas to keep it a close game within 2 or 3 points, I think. And I'm going to take the under.
Under.
No, I'm going to go the over on this.
Over?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one, another money game for me. Oregon, 6.5-point favorite at Texas Tech. Over under on this 67. Okay. Oregon looked good in their game. They started off a little slow, but at the end of the day, they win. The thing is with Texas Tech, they lose to Wyoming. But here in my preseason video, I picked Texas Tech to finish dead last in the Big 12. And I said in that video, anywhere from 10 to 14, it could be anywhere swapped in there. And I saw media polls and people saying having Texas Tech as a sleeper for the Big 12. But when you break down the team and who they lost and who they have coming back, I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I do not understand how people think Texas Tech was going to be a good football team this year. I just don't. To me, Oregon, I don't get 6.5. This should be 12, 14, 15 points.
Yeah.
I'm going to easily take Oregon to cover. I know they have to go to Lubbock, and as far as an over-under here, I'm going to go under 67, though.
Yeah, and Lubbock may be one of the more
It's a primetime game,
hostile places to go play. Their fans are known around these parts for throwing things on the field, batteries being one of them. Mm-hmm. They throw the tortillas for some reason. But
it's a primetime game, so
the
heat's not going to be as big of a deal.
It's 6.5 points.
Yeah.
I'm taking Oregon in this, and I'll go the over on the over
67.
Yeah.
Okay. Wisconsin 4.5-point favorite against Washington State, over under 54.5. Wisconsin still getting a read on them. Thought last week that with Tanner Mordecai, the offense would be a little bit more explosive than it was. They were kind of mellow, and I wasn't really expecting that out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, Mordecai went 24 for 31, 189 yards through the air, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
Yeah,
that's not really like him.
That's not like him at all.
Yeah.
So he could come out and be explosive next week, but the fact he struggled like that in week 1, it gives me pause. Against Buffalo. So it gives me pause. So I'm going to take Washington State in this. Not saying they win, but I am going to take them because they're the underdog. And I'm going to go under 54.5.
I had me taking Wisconsin. The over-under. What'd you go on that?
Under 54.5.
Let's see. They scored 38 against Buffalo. And then Washington State, what'd they do? 50 against Colorado State, who's not great. Yeah, I'll take the over.
Take the over?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on. UCLA, 13-point favorite against San Diego State, over under 48.5. The one thing I'm going to bring up about this is, we haven't mentioned this yet, is that the new clock rules in college football.
Yeah.
No longer stopping the clock on a first down until you're within the last 2 minutes of a half. Mm-hmm. That is causing about the offense to have about 8 to 10 plays less per game than they normally would because of that rule. That on average is causing about a 3 to 4 point difference in scoring per game.
Then give us less ads, because here's the thing. I read this thing where this guy did a whole numbers breakdown of the game, I think last night. Mm-hmm. There was almost an hour worth of ad runtime. There was 2 hours and 38 minutes, I think, of game presentation. And when I say game presentation, I mean even the things where it's welcome back, this is your Aflac trivia of the game. Yeah. Even that's marketing, but he didn't count all that. So there was even more advertising within the game itself that he didn't account for.
Okay, so as somebody who works in television, I'll tell you that they don't have a choice.
Right.
I mean, the ESPN, Fox, all these guys, they are paying billions for these rights.
Yeah.
And you have a time where ESPN, I believe from 2010 or 2012 to now, has went from 100 million cable subscribers to 70. When you consider that they get like $10 per subscriber, they've lost $3 billion in revenue.
Yeah.
And it continues to go down. The only way that they can afford these contracts is more advertising. They've got to make up that money. Yeah. I know it sucks for us fans, but they don't have a choice. I mean, these contracts, these media rights deals are ridiculous. Yeah. And going forward, I'm telling you, right now is the peak. You'll never see contracts like this again for media rights for conferences. It won't happen again. TV is completely changing. Streaming will never make up the difference for loss in linear TV coverage. Yeah. It will never make up the difference. You can never, because advertising rates for digital and streaming are less than linear TV.
Yeah.
So,
well, this also was the game. This was LSU versus Florida State. Had it been a closer game where both teams are having to use timeouts, there would have been well over an hour, maybe even an hour and 10 minutes of ad time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're shortening the game or speeding up the game, I'll say, because you don't shorten it. But there were something like 10 less snaps, I think, than an average game in that game. And then you had the added ad time. It's getting to the point where it's gonna look a lot. It's gonna look a lot more like the NFL. Yeah. And I'm sorry to say, but college football dwarfs the NFL. Like when it comes to,
I agree.
Money, when it comes to, how many people are watching. And granted that there's way more schools than there are NFL teams, but man, it's getting out of hand, and it's getting really annoying.
Back to this one.
I'm going to take so San Diego State has already played 2 games. They're on their third now. They've won both. They beat Idaho State 36-28. They beat Ohio to 20-13.
Yeah, I watched that one.
And then UCLA beat Coastal Carolina 27-13. Which Coastal Carolina has been one of the better Group of 5 schools within the past few years. So I'm going to take UCLA in this. I'll go with the over.
That's what I'm doing. I got UCLA covering 13. I'm going to take the over as well. All right, 3 games left. Stanford, USC. USC, 29.5-point favorite. 71 is the over-under here. USC, obviously Caleb Williams and that offense just screaming. I mean, they look almost like a carbon copy of OU from the Lincoln Riley days. Just tremendous offense, not a lot of defense. They did play better defense against San Jose State than I thought that they were going to. But, you know, I'm just curious when they finally hit a good offense, when they finally hit some really good defensive linemen or offensive linemen, like what they're going to be able to do, what their defense is going to be able to do. As far as this one goes, you know, I'm going to reluctantly take USC to cover 29.5, and I'm going to go over 71 because I think Caleb Williams continues to play lights out. Stanford's one of the worst teams in the Pac-12 this year.
Yeah.
They're right at the bottom, honestly. So I think USC has a day with Stanford.
Yeah. I'm taking USC, and I'm taking the over.
Last 2. Auburn, 6.5-point favorite against Cal. 56.5 is the over-under. I don't know. Auburn going into the season kind of thought they'd be a 6-7 win team. I just don't know much about Cal. But I do know that Cal usually plays tough and plays teams very close at home. So I'm going to take Cal in the points, but I'm going to go under 56.5.
Auburn beats UMass 59-14, and Cal beat North Texas 58-21. So both teams this last week took care of business. I'm going to switch up another one. I had Auburn originally, but I'll take Cal to keep it a close game.
Okay.
And I will take the under.
Under. Okay. Last one here. Oklahoma State, 3.5-point favorite at Arizona State. Over-under on this is 53. Oklahoma State last week, was it Arkansas Pine Bluff they played? Or no, they played Central Arkansas.
Yeah.
They played Central Arkansas. They played 3 quarterbacks, including Gunnar Gundy.
Yeah.
He played. So they don't really have an established quarterback. On the flip side of that, Arizona State, not bowl eligible. All that, you know, aftermath of the Herm Edwards days at Arizona State, they're kind of like in no man's land, like what's going to happen. So Arizona State's just kind of up in the air at the moment. They are going to be joining the Big 12, so this is a preview of future Big 12 games.
Yeah.
They played last year in Stillwater. You know, I don't think Oklahoma State's going to be a very good football team this year, but they're definitely better than Arizona State. I think they cover the 3.5, and I'm going to go under the 53.
Yeah, that's probably similar to what I have. Southern Utah is who Arizona State had in their first week, and they only beat them by 3 points. They won 24-21. Oklahoma State played Central Arkansas, but they beat them 27-13. So not a huge win on either of their parts. I'm going to take the same pick as you. I'm going to Oklahoma State and under 53.
Okay. Guys, that's our pick for week 2 of college football. We hope you guys continue to tune in throughout the season. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, like the video, leave a comment, and then always go check out Odds Jam. I'm telling you, if you're serious about sports betting, no matter what the sport, you're going to want to go check out what they have for free, and also maybe consider signing up for their premium service. Guys, that's it. We're on to week 3 after this. See you later.